The rain tapped gently against the living room window. As I sat in my favorite armchair, scrolling through work emails, on a quiet Tuesday evening, at 47, I had built a comfortable life for myself. A modest but cozy home in the suburbs, a successful career in real estate, and a family that, until recently, I believed was picture perfect. My wife Rachel and I had been married for 25 years. Our relationship weathered by time, but seemingly strong. Our daughter Emily had just turned 22 and was finishing her final year at university. Rachel, a vibrant 45-year-old with a passion for interior design, had always been the social butterfly of our household. She maintained an active social calendar, frequently meeting friends for coffee or attending various community events. I never questioned her comings and goings. After a quarter-century of marriage, trust had become second nature. Emily, inheriting her mother's outgoing personality, often joined Rachel on these outings, creating what I believe were cherished mother-daughter moments. Our evenings typically followed a predictable pattern. Rachel would prepare dinner while sharing stories from her day. Emily would join us via video call from her apartment near campus, and I would unwind with a glass of wine, content in the familiarity of our routine. The house always carried the comforting scent of Rachel's lavender candles, mingling with the aroma of whatever dish she was preparing. It was this sense of normalcy, this carefully constructed domestic harmony, that made what happened next all the more devastating looking back. There were subtle signs that should have raised my suspicions. Rachel's increasingly frequent girls' nights, her sudden interest in fitness classes 3 times a week, and the way she seemed to guard her phone more closely than usual. But love, as they say, is blind, and I chose to see only what I wanted to believe, that we were a happy family, moving through life together as we always had. It was a Thursday evening when everything changed. I had returned home earlier than expected from a client meeting, hoping to surprise Rachel with dinner reservations for our upcoming anniversary. As I entered the kitchen, I heard muffled voices coming from Emily's room. Down the hall, normally, I would have dismissed it as another typical phone conversation between Emily and her friends, but something about the tone caught my attention. Pressing my ear closer to the door, I could make out my daughter's voice, unusually serious for someone her age. "Yeah, Mom, seeing him again this weekend," Emily whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I've already arranged everything. The restaurant reservation, the hotel room downtown. She thinks it's just another one of her girls' nights, but I've set up the perfect romantic evening for them." My blood ran cold as I listened, each word hitting me like a physical blow. "Is so excited," Emily continued, oblivious to my presence just outside her door. "Kept texting me about how beautiful Mom looks in that new dress I helped her pick out." I staggered back from the door, my mind struggling to process what I'd heard. The pieces began falling in a place with sickening clarity. Rachel's sudden interest in fitness wasn't for health reasons. Those girls' nights were anything but innocent, and Emily's frequent shopping trips with her mother had been carefully orchestrated to help facilitate this affair. The sound of my own breathing seemed deafening in the silent hallway as I processed the depth of their betrayal. What struck me most was the casualness in Emily's voice, the matter-of-fact way she discussed her role in arranging these secret meetings. This wasn't a recent development. The ease with which she spoke suggested months, possibly years of active participation in maintaining her mother's double life. My knees buckled, and I found myself sinking to the floor, clutching the wall for support. The woman I had loved and trusted for over 2 decades, and the daughter I had raised to value honesty and integrity, have been conspiring behind my back, treating their deception as if it were some elaborate game. The weight of their betrayal pressed down on me, each breath becoming more difficult than the last. I thought about all the times I had proudly watched Emily grow into adulthood, believing I was instilling in her the values that would guide her through life. Instead, she had learned to manipulate, to lie, to orchestrate deception. With the same precision I had taught her, to plan her studies or manage her finances. And Rachel, the woman who had promised to stand by me through thick and thin, had been systematically dismantling our marriage, while I remained blissfully unaware. As I sat there in stunned silence, a bitter realization dawned on me. They hadn't just been lying to me. They had been protecting each other, forming a united front against me. The mother-daughter bond one had always admired had transformed into something dark and secretive, built on sheer deception rather than genuine connection. The pain of Rachel's infidelity was compounded by Emily's complicity, making it impossible to separate one betrayal from the other. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, every creak of the house amplifying the turmoil within me. Rachel's gentle breathing beside me sounded alien now. Each inhale and exhale, a reminder of a life we had supposedly built together. I methodically reviewed every interaction, every family dinner, every holiday celebration, searching for signs I might have missed. The Christmas party, where Rachel had seemed unusually distracted, constantly checking her phone. The summer vacation when she claimed food poisoning to explain her early departure from our beach house. Each memory now carried the taint of deception. My initial shock gave way to a seething anger that burned through my chest. How dare they treat our family home as merely a backdrop for their charade? The walls that had witnessed our happiest moments, Emily's first steps in the living room, Rachel and I dancing in the kitchen during thunderstorms, had also concealed their lies. I felt physically ill thinking about the times I had proudly introduced Rachel as my wife, at work functions completely unaware of her secret life. The injustice of their actions knotted me. They had robbed me not just of trust, but of years I could have spent pursuing different dreams, building new relationships, or simply being honest with myself about my life. The financial implications began to surface in my mind. To have they been using our joint accounts to fund these secret rendezvous, where the vacations we had planned together, compromised by Rachel's need to be available for a lover? Most painful was the realization that Emily had chosen loyalty to her mother over honesty to her father. All those late-night conversations about ethics and integrity during her college years, had she been laughing inwardly at my naivety? The daughter who had once sought my advice on everything, from school projects to relationship troubles, had become my betrayer. I recall teaching her how to drive, explaining the importance of looking ahead and anticipating dangers on the road. Now I understood. She had been applying those lessons to navigating her role in this deception. Sleep became impossible as my mind raced through scenarios of confrontation. Should I wake Rachel immediately and demand answers? Would Emily defend her mother or finally show remorse? The thought of facing them both filled me with equal parts rage and dread. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity, each tick of the clock amplifying my sense of violation. I needed answers, but more importantly, I needed control over the situation that had spiraled beyond my comprehension. The following morning, I rose before dawn, watching Rachel sleep peacefully beside me. Her serene expression mocked my inner turmoil. As I quietly dressed and headed to my home office, methodically I began examining our financial records, starting with the past 6 months of credit card statements. What I discovered confirmed my worst fears. Regular charges at upscale restaurants across town, boutique hotel stays on weekends. I thought Rachel was visiting her sister, and numerous purchases from high-end lingerie stores. Each transaction felt like another dagger to my heart, but I forced myself to remain clinical in my approach. I created a detailed spreadsheet, cross-referencing dates with Rachel's supposed activities. The pattern emerged clearly. Every girls' night corresponded with expensive dinners and hotel bookings. Even more damning were the Uber receipts, showing pickups from locations far from restated destinations. My hands trembled as I documented each piece of evidence, knowing that these weren't just numbers on a page, but concrete proof of their betrayal. The breakthrough came when I accessed Rachel's email account, using the password she had carelessly left, written in her planner there. Amidst mundane shopping, confirmations, and work correspondence, were emails exchanged with someone named D. Their messages painted a picture of a long, standing affair filled with intimate details and plans for future meetings. Some emails even included logistical arrangements, from Emily confirming restaurant reservations or suggesting alternative meeting spots. When Rachel's schedule changed, I copied everything onto an external drive, my movements mechanical, as I worked through a fog of disbelief. The digital trail was extensive, hundreds of messages spanning nearly 2 years. Each email revealed more about their deception, how they had developed code words for their meetings, how Emily had created elaborate cover stories for Rachel's absences, and how they had meticulously planned each encounter to avoid detection. The most recent exchanges discussed upcoming dates, including the one Emily had been arranging. When I overheard her conversation in Rachel's personal planner, I found more evidence of their careful orchestration. Notes in the margins referenced special occasions that coincided with my business trips, and entire weekends were blocked off with vague entries, like out of town or visiting friends. The irony struck me hard. She had been documenting her betrayals right under my nose, trusting that I would never question her integrity. Each discovery added another layer to the complex web of lies they had woven around our marriage. By the time I finished gathering evidence, the sun had risen, casting harsh light through the office windows. I stared at the mountain of documentation spread across my desk, feeling both vindicated and violated. The truth was undeniable. His way threatened to crush me. I knew I couldn't confront them yet, not until I had formulated a plan that would ensure justice was served on my terms. For now, I would continue playing the devoted husband, biding my time while they remained oblivious to my knowledge of their betrayal. The following morning, I rose before dawn, watching Rachel sleep peacefully beside me. Her serene expression mocked my inner turmoil. As I quietly dressed and headed to my home office, methodically I began examining our financial records, starting with the past 6 months of credit card statements. What I discovered confirmed my worst fears: regular charges at upscale restaurants across town, boutique hotel stays on weekends. I thought Rachel was visiting her sister, and numerous purchases from high-end lingerie stores. Each transaction felt like another dagger to my heart, but I forced myself to remain clinical in my approach. I created a detailed spreadsheet, cross-referencing dates with Rachel's supposed activities. The pattern emerged clearly. Every girls' night corresponded with expensive dinners and hotel bookings. Even more damning were the Uber receipts, showing pickups from locations far from or stated destinations. My hands trembled as I documented each piece of evidence, knowing that these weren't just numbers on a page, but concrete proof of their betrayal. The breakthrough came when I accessed Rachel's email account, using the password she had carelessly left, written in her planner there. Amidst mundane shopping, confirmations, and work correspondence, were emails exchanged with someone named D. Their messages painted a picture of a long, standing affair filled with intimate details and plans for future meetings. Some emails even included logistical arrangements, from Emily confirming restaurant reservations or suggesting alternative meeting spots. When Rachel's schedule changed, I copied everything onto an external drive, my movements mechanical, as I worked through a fog of disbelief. The digital trail was extensive, hundreds of messages spanning nearly 2 years. Each email revealed more about their deception, how they had developed code words for their meetings, how Emily had created elaborate cover stories for Rachel's absences, and how they had meticulously planned each encounter to avoid detection. The most recent exchanges discussed upcoming dates, including the one Emily had been arranging. When I overheard her conversation in Rachel's personal planner, I found more evidence of their careful orchestration. Notes in the margins reference special occasions that coincided with my business trips, and entire weekends were blocked off with vague entries, like out of town or visiting friends. The irony struck me hard. She had been documenting her betrayals right under my nose, trusting that I would never question her integrity. Each discovery added another layer to the complex web of lies they had woven around our marriage. By the time I finished gathering evidence, the sun had risen, casting harsh light through the office windows. I stared at the mountain of documentation spread across my desk, feeling both vindicated and violated. The truth was undeniable, yet its weight threatened to crush me. I knew I couldn't confront them yet, not until I had formulated a plan that would ensure justice was served on my terms. For now, I would continue playing the devoted husband, biding my time while they remained oblivious to my knowledge of their betrayal. The moment of reckoning arrived on a Friday evening, precisely 2 weeks after my discovery. I had deliberately chosen this date, knowing Rachel would be expecting another girls' night, and Emily would be joining us for dinner. As I stood in the doorway of our dining room, watching them set the table together, I marveled at how effortlessly they maintained their facade. Rachel humped softly while arranging flowers, while Emily chattered about her upcoming weekend plans. Plans I now knew were designed to provide her mother with another opportunity for betrayal. "You know," I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me, "I've always prided myself on being a good judge of character." Both women turned to look at me, their expressions shifting from casual interest to something approaching concern. But it seems I've been spectacularly wrong about the two people I trusted most in this world. I placed the folder containing all my evidence on the dining table, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent room. Rachel's face drained of color as she recognized her planner peeking out from the folder. Emily instinctively reached for her mother's hand, their practice, deception crumbling in the face of exposure. "How long?" I asked, my voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "2 years, according to your emails, or has it been longer?" Rachel opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, tears began streaming down her face. "I trusted you," I continued, my voice rising with each word. "Both of you, I trusted you with my heart, with my home, with everything I had. And you repay that trust by turning our family into some sort of sick conspiracy." Emily tried to interject, but I cut her off. "Don't bother defending yourself, Emily. I know exactly what role you played in this. The reservations, the cover stories, the careful planning. You were her accomplice every step of the way." Rachel finally found her voice, though it trembled with emotion. "Please let me explain," she began. But I held up a hand to silence her. "Explain what, Rachel?" "That you've been leading a double life. That you've been lying to me for years. That our daughter has been helping you maintain the charade." I pulled out printouts of their emails, watching his recognition dawned on their faces. "You thought you were so clever, didn't you, planning your little escapes, covering your tracks, thinking I'd never suspect a thing." The air in the room grew heavy with unspoken guilt as I laid out every piece of evidence: hotel receipts, restaurant bills, coded messages, each document adding another layer to their web of deceit. "Do you have any idea what this feels like?" I demanded, my voice breaking, despite my attempts to maintain control. "To discover that the people you love most in this world have been systematically destroying everything you believed in." Emily finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dad, I'm so sorry." But I couldn't bear to hear her excuses. "Sorry? You're sorry. You betrayed me, Emily. Your own father, and for what? To help your mother cheat on me. I turned back to Rachel, whose tears had turned to silent sobs. And you took vows, Rachel. You promised to stand by me, to be faithful instead. You've been playing house with another man, while I remained oblivious to your betrayal. The confrontation stretched on for hours, each revelation more painful than the last. Yet through it all I maintained an icy calm, refusing to give in to the raw emotions, threatening to overwhelm me. I needed them, to understand the full weight of their actions, to feel the devastation they had caused. When the night finally ended, we were no longer a family, just three strangers, bound by a history of lies and broken promises. The days following the confrontation passed in a blur of legal proceedings and emotional turmoil. I filed for divorce immediately, citing irreconcilable differences in adultery. The court proceedings revealed even more about Rachel's deception, hidden bank accounts, property purchased under false pretenses, and a pattern of financial manipulation that had been occurring for years. My lawyer, initially skeptical about my claims, became increasingly disturbed by the extent of the evidence I gathered. Child support arrangements took an unexpected turn when Emily, overwhelmed by guilt and shame, decided to distance herself from both parents. She transferred to a university on the other side of the country, severing ties with Rachel entirely. The mother-daughter bond they had sacrificed our marriage to protect crumbled under the weight of their exposed deception. Rachel, desperate to maintain some connection with her daughter, attempted reconciliation, but Emily refused all contact. Social consequences rippled through our community like shockwaves. Friends and neighbors, many of whom had unknowingly participated in their charade by covering for Rachel's supposed girls' nights, turned away in disgust. The local book club Rachel had led disbanded after members learned of her betrayal. Her interior design clients began canceling contracts, unwilling to associate with someone who had demonstrated such profound dishonesty. Financial repercussions proved equally severe. The court awarded me a significant portion of our shared assets, including the marital home. Rachel was forced to sell her beloved beach house, ironically the very property she had used for many of her secret meetings. Her credit suffered as unpaid debts from her double life came to light, and several luxury store accounts were closed due to suspicious activity patterns. Perhaps most satisfying was witnessing Rachel's relationship with her paramour deteriorate, deprived of the carefully maintained secrecy that had fueled their affair. And facing public scrutiny, their romance quickly soured. Within months he had moved on to another partner, leaving Rachel truly alone, abandoned by her lover, estranged from her daughter, and shunned by society. 3 years have passed since that fateful confrontation, and I've built a life that bears little resemblance to the one I lost. My new home, a charming cottage overlooking the ocean, stands as a testament to my resilience and newfound independence. The sound of waves crashing against the shore has become my constant companion, replacing the silence that once echoed through our suburban house. I've embraced solitude not as a punishment, but as a gift, the freedom to rediscover who I am without the constraints of betrayal. Professionally, I've reinvented myself, leaving behind the competitive world of real estate. I found fulfillment in architectural restoration, working with historic buildings that, like me, have survived damage and emerged stronger. The work requires patience and precision, qualities have cultivated through my journey of healing. Each restored structure serves as a metaphor for my own reconstruction, taking something broken and transforming it into something beautiful and enduring emotionally. The scars remain, but they faded. From open wounds to gentle reminders of my strength, therapy helped me process the trauma, teaching me to separate my worth from others' actions. I've learned to appreciate the power of vulnerability, sharing my story selectively with those who deserve my trust. These connections, built on authenticity rather than obligation, have proven far more meaningful than any relationship I maintained in my previous life. My perspective on family has evolved dramatically. While I always carry the pain of Emily's betrayal, I've come to understand that true family isn't defined by blood, but by mutual respect and honesty. I've formed deep bonds with colleagues and neighbors who value transparency and integrity, qualities I now recognize as non-negotiable in any relationship. The emptiness left by Rachel and Emily's absence has been filled not by bitterness, but by a rich tapestry of genuine connections. Perhaps the most profound change has been in my understanding of love and trust. I no longer view them as givens or entitlements, but as precious commodities that must be earned and maintained. This awareness hasn't made me cynical. Rather, it's made me more appreciative of authentic relationships. I've learned to recognize the subtle signs of deception I once ignored, and to value communication over assumption. The experience, while devastating, has ultimately made me wiser and more discerning in my interactions with others. Closure came not through revenge or reconciliation, but through acceptance. Acceptance that some relationships are beyond repair, that people can disappoint us profoundly, and that we have the power to rebuild our lives. Regardless of circumstances, the man I am today, stronger, more self-aware, and genuinely content, wouldn't exist without the painful journey that brought me here. Rather than dwelling on what was lost, I focus on what I've gained: peace, purpose, and the unwavering knowledge that I can overcome even the deepest betrayals.